And if hands don't have either of them in it, they can be very difficult to keep.
Gamble can be a keeper too.
Yeah, Gamble, I mean, you play Gamble because you need life from the loam that, like, it is that important that you're willing to play Gamble just to get life from the loam. You know, the other big advantage to lands is it's the only deck, really, it's like one of the only decks that just gets to play a Mox for free. It's just really unfair. So, Mox Diamond, Cycle Tranquil Thicket.
Decent start.
Yeah, now I wonder, David tanked on this, whether or not the reason he kept a 5-card hand was that it had a strength of a turn 1 Mox Diamond and maybe doesn't have Exploration or Life from the Loam or Gambling.
Well, this is a great way to start. It's a Nimble Mongoose. Long will draw. We're going to find out real quick if he has a Life from the Loam or not.
Yeah, wasting the Tropical Island, land, Loam all 3 back is strong.
That's strong too.
Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, after he got Danny's only land, that's going to kill Nimble Mongoose. What a coup there for David that he got to get that guy off the board.
Yep.
If he had the land, Danny would have paid for Mongoose every turn.
There's a Wooded Foothills. Keep in mind, Long is on a mulligan to, I believe, 5 here.
Yeah. But he has some lock pieces in play. And really all is forgiven if he can hit a Life from the Loam. Then really none of this matters. Danny can't counter it. I mean, he could counter it once, but David will just keep trying to play it.
Yep. Tropical Island is the land that Jessup will search up.
One interesting thing that can happen in this matchup, actually, is because David is really light on cards, it is not impossible for Danny to start wastelanding David.
Sure.
To good effect, which is interesting. You'd think, oh, you know, you can't wasteland the 36 land deck. No, you can in specific situations.
You do whatever you want. Fire off those wastelands. Who cares? Jessup going to take a look at a Ponder here. Spell Snare among the cards. Looks like he's going to keep.
A Spell Snare weak in the matchup. It counters Life from the Loam, but kind of established before, that's a very temporary plan. We might not see David do anything for a while.
Time for maybe a gamble here. Mana Bond.
Mana Bond, interesting card. At the end of each of David's turns, he discards his hand and puts the lands into play.
If he'd like to.
If you would like to.
It is a you may.
Helps with Life from the Loam if he ever gets a Loam going. This is a pseudo exploration. Just gets to dump everything.
Long with just 1 card left in hand.
Yeah. He's setting up really well for that Life from the Loam. The moment he hits it, he's going to be off to the races.
Yeah. Jessup going to sacrifice Misty Rainforest. He'll get a Volcanic Island, so all colors of mana are here.
Interesting. Trying to figure. You can almost just do process of elimination when watching a land deck. You know, what card could be left in David's hand? Could be a land. Could be a Punishing Fire. Trying to think what he wouldn't have cast by now.
Here's a Tarmogoyf. It'll be a 3/4. Long will draw.
So there's a clock from Danny. Now David, all he needs to do is find a Mazavith, and he can keep this going, but that was the draw.
Yep. There's a Loam.
And the mulligan is undone in 1 card.
Well, now you get to see this kind of weird lands deck in action because Loam has arrived, the dredging will begin, and now Long can really, really get to work.
Yeah. He opts to play Forest, knowing that he can put the Wasteland into play at the end step. I think he wants to cycle Tranquil Thicket here.
It's that or cast Crop Rotation.
Okay, he has a Crop Rotation added as well. Could find Dark Depths, could find Maze of Ith. Either way, putting a land in the graveyard is great.
Yeah, once you found your Loam, hard to pass that up. So Crop Rotation is going to resolve.
No Days or Force from Danny.
There's Wasteland. Yep, he's going after all the lands now.
And remember, Temur Delver does not play any basics. So the fact that David has 2 Wastelands, Mana Bond, and Life from the Loam means and Tabernacle. This should just be a lock.
Yep.
He can Wasteland twice every turn. So Danny will run out of lands, and then all of Danny's creatures will have upkeep costs of 1, so he won't be able to keep a creature on the board.
Yep, Danny's just lost it all.
Yeah, and then I believe this should complete the lock.
Yeah, all it took was for Long to find that copy of Life from the Loam. That's it.
Yeah, all of Danny's lands will be blown up every turn, and all his creatures will be sacrificed to Pendrell.
Keep in mind, this is only going to 5, but in this matchup, it's not so much about card quantity as it is about card quality.
Yeah, I mean, even as card quality, it's just David's deck only has 10, 12 cards in it, but when he finds them, they're off the charts. So it's just a check. Do I have one of my pieces?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Danny is just...
I can't think of a way out of this.
I can't either. I mean, this is, you describe this deck really well. It's a term that, for newer Magic players, they haven't really seen very much. Prison.
Right, so the reason you don't hear about prison decks is that they used to exist a lot more of the time, and R&D actively tries to stop them from existing at this point because they're not particularly... I mean, so the idea of a prison deck is that you establish this basically prison around your opponent's deck where they just can't do anything anymore. You try to lock, you take away their, like you saw there, David took away Danny's ability to play lands and then his ability to keep creatures on the board. So Danny could never play, he just couldn't have anything at the end of the day. So you've seen these, you sometimes see decks like in Vintage, you see decks which are about sphere resistance, Trinisphere, that their whole point is to make it so that your opponent can never afford to play a single spell. Things like this fit into this prison archetype. And yeah, in Eternal formats, you see them more often. And lands, and I guess to a lesser point, Enchantress are kind of the prison decks of Legacy.
Yeah, we don't see them a ton, but Lance is pretty well positioned right now, and that's why David Long is currently up a game. Players are going to go to sideboards. We'll do the same here for Danny Jessup. He's got 3 Pyroblast, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Submerge, 2 Rough Tumble, a Flusterstorm, a Life from the Loam, a Sulfur Elemental, an Ancient Grudge, a Sylvan Library, and a copy of Winter Orb. But what you'll notice here is not really a lot doing.
Well, I'm interested in... I don't know if I'm interested in Winter Orb. That's actually... interesting. Sometimes the lands deck, I guess, can go on a Rishadan port plan, and you really can't port someone who has a Winter Orb in play. It's a losing proposition, so he may do that. All right, the big ones, out of his deck, boy, Sylvan Library's reasonable, but there's not much he gets to board here. It's not a good matchup for Danny.
No, it's really not. That's actually why you don't find a lot of hate in his sideboard either.
Because it just doesn't help it enough.
Yeah, it's just a matchup you kind of have to skip. Now for David, he's got 4 Trinispheres, a Karakas, 4 Corrosive Grips, a Molten Vortex, 2 Chokes, 2 Chalice of the Voids, and a Bojuka Bog. I mean, Bojuka Bog is a pretty useful resource here. Chalice of the Void can be pretty good since he can cast it on turn 1 against the all 1-mana spell deck. So he's got some options here.
He has options. I mean, both times, they both have very little sideboard of each other. It's for different reasons. It's because David thinks the matchup is great, so he doesn't need any sideboard, and Danny thinks the matchup is so bad that he thinks the sideboard won't help. So both players devoted their sideboards to different decks. And I think games 2 and 3 will largely be encores of game 1. Which, if you're a fan of Danny Jessup, means you're in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take a look at the Season 4 schedule here on the Open Series very quickly as these players finish shuffling up. We'll see us starting with the Modern Open Series in Cincinnati, a couple standard events in Worcester, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis. After that, we'll go to Atlanta for a standard event, a Legacy Open in St. Louis, Modern Open Series in Dallas that you and I will be covering, and then, of course, standard in Philadelphia. After that, we got our sealed Grand Prix in Atlanta. We'll have more details about that coming soon at StarCityGames.com. A standard Open Series event in Kansas City. A Legacy Open in New Jersey. A return to Denver for the first time in a couple of years in the middle of December, so it'll be a little bit chilly there. But then we'll heat things up in Las Vegas for our Season 4 Invitational. And then our Player Championship in Roanoke. For all those main events, I'm going to let you say this because I'm not particularly good at it yet. It's the Hoppin'...
It's the Hoppin' Rabbit Master.
There you go. There we go. You say it with such gusto as we unveiled this a little bit earlier today after round number 2. For those of you just joining the broadcast, this will be the Season 4 playmat here on the Open Series. You join a main event, you get this one for free, and I think this one's going to be pretty popular. Don't know if it's going to pass up Tassiper, the Golden Paw, but it'll try.
I really like it. Look, they all have carrots as weapons. You thought they just ate them, one has a little patch over his eye.
One of the best things about these is you really have to dive into the artwork and see exactly how many different things are going on. Because I didn't notice that the lead rabbit actually had, like a carrot stick that he's beating down with.
Yeah, so it was a maul. He has a club, and he's got this giant carrot on the top of it.
It's fun. I'm going to dive into that a little bit. It looks like Danny's probably working on 6 cards, and I believe he's taken 1 mulligan, but he's given a long look at his hand.
I always thought the maul in medieval warfare was the coolest weapon because it's so straightforward. You just get the biggest rock you can, put it on a stick, and then you drop it on someone, and even if they're wearing armor, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all.
Right. It's like, I understand how this one works. You drop something really heavy on someone. Got it.
That'll probably take care of them.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You don't have a plan B.
Well, if that doesn't, what will, I guess, is the question. I do like the straightforward nature of the maul. Yeah. So this is what I'm about.
This is what I'm about. I'm gonna pick up the heaviest thing I can, and then I'm gonna drop it.
I'm mostly here to give beatdowns.
I would imagine it's like not very efficient in one-on-one combat. Is that they might see it coming, you know.
It doesn't mean they can do anything about it.
I mean, if they're quick, probably. You know.
Maybe. It depends how skilled the person with the ball is. There are some things that you just have.
What if the rocks, if it's really big?
Yeah.
If it's just, it just doesn't even matter.
David's happy. Danny is happy enough as we're underway here in game number 2. Let's start things off with the Delver of Secrets. Got to get that clock going. Here's a Grove of the Burn Willows. It's an exploration.
Uh-oh. The one thing I do like about lands is that Exploration and Mox Diamond are both completely unfair.
Yep.
Just, fortunately for Danny, because he's on the play this time, he gets to daze it. And because David's deck is so light on action, sometimes a simple daze on a turn one Exploration can just really put a damper on a lands deck. Maybe he just has more lands and he was just hoping to play a bunch of, like it could have been his hand was Exploration land and then a bunch of Rishadan ports, and he'd keep it, but then his daze just throws a wrench in everything.
Danny trying to figure out exactly what land he wants to play here. Has to be concerned with a card like Wasteland, for example. This is his only real source of mana.
There's been a trend today that I don't know if I've seen the other side of a Delver of Secrets card.
It feels like it's been a long time. Insectile Aberration has not wanted to appear this weekend. There's Volcanic Island. There's a Ponder.
All right. Now, if the Delver doesn't flip this turn, then I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah. It's all very unclear. Danny going to get his library all set up.
He has boarded in Life from the Loam. You see Life from the Loam and Spell Pierce among the cards he's looking at. And that's interesting to me because at one point you want to stop the lands deck from wastelanding you. At the same time, if you want to get into this land trade game with them, you're not going to win. They're just so much better at it.
Grove of the Burn Willows is the land here for David Long. And what that really means is that he's playing Punishing Fire in his deck somewhere. The question is, does he have it in his hand? It looks as though he does, and he's going to cast it right now on Delver of Secrets. Jessup will get the gain of life thanks to the Grove, but does Jessup believe this is a fight worth having? He's doing a little bit of math now, so maybe he does.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a Grove in play. So does Danny even want to fight over it?
Looks like the answer is yes.
All right.
What that means is he has a Wasteland in his hand. That's what that has to mean to kill the Grove.
Well, or he could just Spell Pierce the Punishing Fire again next turn and just start turning all his cards into Lava Spikes. That's not unreasonable.
It is a plan.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The easiest thing is to just waste the Grove of the Burn Willows.
All right, he's going to play Volcanic Island, pass the turn back.
Yeah, I guess if David is willing to spend his turn playing a red source, it has the next red source too. Danny's willing to trade a Spell Pierce for it. It's not like Spell Pierce is a particularly live card in this matchup. It's fine, but its lifespan is really short.
For sure. Another Grove.
All right, so had Danny wait, right. He's looking good here on this one.
Yep. It's interesting because the way that Danny has to play this matchup is very unconventional. You know, he's spell piercing cards. He doesn't want to spell pierce, like Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam. But, you know, his hand is kind of forcing what he can do.
David is going to go for that play, but he's going to do it on Danny's upkeep, so that Danny has to use the mana on his own turn.
Yep, as he should.
Now, we'll see if Danny wants to trade that Spell Pierce for 3 more damage.
Makes it, like you said, basically a Lava Spike.
The question is will the Spell Pierce ever be better than Lava Spike, and does he have something else he needs to cast this turn? Answers to both those? No. He'll go ahead and counter it.
There's an attack for 3 yet again. Long as they go down to 13. What's interesting about this is how long can this kind of weird Spell Pierce, your recurable spell thing work?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, there's also an issue that because Danny's dazed twice, this Rishadan port is pretty decent. But, I mean, at 3 life a turn, I think this is an exchange both players are going to keep making.
Jessup going to sacrifice that Misty Rainforest and just pass the turn back. Long will draw.
You see Life from the Loam might be hiding out there, I think, in David's hand. But without an Exploration or Mana Bond in play, it's not the main priority on this board.
Let's see what's next here for David. His life total, I wouldn't say, is in horrible shape. Like, you don't like the way the game is going. You'd like to break this up a little bit. I think this is an attempt at that with a crop rotation, maybe search for a card like Maze of Ith.
So we'll go for crop rotation. You wonder if it's a going for Wasteland. We know David has a Life from the Loam in his hand.
Yeah, I don't know if it's time to get that engine going yet.
Well, if he has crop rotates or Wasteland, he can Wasteland the Tropical Island, go through combat, play a 4th land, and then Punishing Fire the Insectile Aberration. And this is pretty decent too. He's going to get Maze of Ith.
I like this plan of getting Maze of Ith here. Slow him down. The number of answers that Danny has to this are pretty low.
It's his own Wastelands.
Yeah. You know, he can Stifle it once. Assuming he has Stifle still in his deck. Here's Loam.
Yeah, it doesn't look like David has any more lands in his hand, so he's actually going to have to Loam here, as opposed to recurring Punishing Fire. If the Loam works, he'll get to do both.
Yep. See if Jessup has a counterspell here. Some way to interact. He's going to cast Spell Pierce again.
Turn him into Lava Spikes. I like the game plan from him.
Yeah, this time it's not going to be very much of a Lava Spike because of the Maze of Ith.
Yeah. It's an more unconventional approach from Danny, though. I like his ability to kind of adapt on the fly here. I mean, if he has the Wasteland, which I believe he does, then this is another Lava Spike. You know, he's staring into a recursion engine of Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam, and he keeps just throwing cards into it, hoping to turn them into damage. But each of these plays, to me, Danny knows with each of these plays that he's just losing cards at each turn.
Yep. I mean, the longer it goes, the worse it is.
Yeah, but you know. But the longer it goes, the lower David's life total is. So maybe it all works out. He hopes.
He hopes. Maze is going to take care of that.
Okay, so it looks like he's going to he's going to try to keep David off.
Grove, yep.
Yeah. This is all right. So his choice there is he could have gotten Maze of Ith and started hitting with Insectile Aberration. And this was a big decision by Danny. So that was one line, and that line is reasonable. He's going to go for David's colored mana and just hope that David doesn't draw a green source on this next turn.
Or that it takes him too long to rebuild towards doing that.
Well, by leaving him the Maze of Ith, David had some time. If David top decks a green source here, he's not in a bad spot. And if he top decks a green source, then he plays the green source. Next turn he dredges Loam, plays Grove, gets back Punishing Fire. Then the next turn he Punishing Fires the Insectile Aberration and mazes the Goyf. Or he just draws another Maze of Ith. Ugh.
Okay.
Can Danny? But no, Danny
Danny has
his
loam.
loam.
Yeah.
Okay, he can get through these maze of its.
Oh, I love this. I want to start with the port.
Or you just want to get all his mana.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I want to.
All right, I'm game.
Yeah. I want to chop his legs off completely in this situation, which is you start with the port. He can never actually get to the mana he wants to get to. I mean, like, you can go after maze and get aggressive.
You want to go, you want to go for port.
Or you can go after port and then he has no mana to tap. He has no lands to tap for any mana.
He'd have to draw a Mox Diamond to rebuild if you went after his port, I think.
But you can also just tell with David drawing a card for the turn, it's very clear he doesn't have lands. Because if he had lands, he would dredge and just say, okay, I'll recast Loam and do that sort of thing.
I mean, and recasting Loam is all Danny's going to do.
All of a sudden, the Loam Wasteland plan has been turned against the lands player.
Well, if David has a wasteland of his own, then he can waste Danny's green source. No, Danny got a Misty Rainforest.
He got a
You're right,
back,
so it's not going to work. Yeah, we see wasteland on David's side. All right, so it's kind of said before, it's this peculiar thing where just you can actually effectively wasteland the lands deck. I think it's because even though they have 36 lands and you know, as many loams as they can cram into a deck, they rely so much on their lands to be their spells that wasteland is just actually a good card against lands.
And also the strategy here from the lands deck, while it is good against Delver in a general sense, when you're not playing multiple lands a turn, it's not as good. So if there were an exploration on the battlefield, it would be pretty good.
Then none of this would matter. You wouldn't have been able to, yeah, completely agree.
Mace is going to shut down that Tarmogoyf. It's the bigger of the two. Here's a Misty. Jessup will sacrifice that. I think it might be time to Loam again, but we'll see. There's a Tropical Island. He's going to go with a Mongoose. And now I'll pass the turn back. Long will untap. Couple colorless lands on the battlefield. We'll take a draw step again. Can't dredge Loam in this situation. Drew a copy of Glacial Chasm. And that's not really what the doctor ordered either, because he's facing an opponent who has access to Loam.
And Wasteland, right.
Yep.
This time it's David is the one who's being locked out by life from the Loam.
How do you like it?
And I don't see a straightforward way for David to recover from this either. It seems that he's too far behind now.
This game, I'm not convinced there is. There's Glacial Chasm.
Right. He can make this game last longer, but that's about it.
Glacial Chasm, you are truly fighting uphill. Danny can take a look at the Glacial Chasm, and that's what he's doing, just to see exactly what it does do. It's got a cumulative upkeep of 2 life, which means every upkeep you have to pay 2 life to keep it, but it doubles every turn. So 2 to 4, all that stuff.
It adds 2 every turn.
Yeah.
Doesn't...
2 to 4 to 6. Yeah.
Right.
And then when Glacial Chasm comes into play, you sacrifice a land. You cannot attack. All damage dealt to you is reduced to 0. It's a weird one.
I mean, regardless, so Danny's going to Loam for the full 3. The relevant one is that Wasteland. If he cares, he can just Wasteland the Glacial Chasm. He can also just Wasteland them. I mean, he gets his choice here. Just gets to pick off David's lands.
I like going after the Chasm because Chasm makes you sacrifice land every time you want to use it anyway.
Yeah.
So now David is down to 1.
So he can't pay for the Chasm, so he'll have to sacrifice it. And
well, you know, Chasm is gone because of Wasteland. But the point is that every time that you want to get the Chasm back, you're losing a land to do so, and then Danny can just bring back the Wasteland to kill the Chasm over and over again. So Chasm is not an out in this situation. It's actually just pretty bad on the whole.
Yeah, looks like we'll be going to game 3. And we kind of see the difference, and this is the route that Team Delver can take to win a game. We see some play draw differences. You know, if David is on the play here and then his exploration doesn't get dazed, then we see a completely different game. He'll get his Loam engine on way too quickly.
Well, this is a game where those Spell Pierces were annoying enough along with Daze to be good. I suppose David Long has one out right now, which is to crop rotate into Tabernacle.
Yeah, the Spell Pierces were able to keep David off Loam just long enough for Danny to get, for Danny to be the first one to resolve a Loam. What was going to happen is that both these players had life from the Loam and Wasteland in their draws, so whichever one resolved Loam first was going to compound that advantage. And I think the counter magic out of Danny made sure that he was the one to do it.
Now, this is the old fingers crossed, hope you don't pay. That's where we're at right now.
That's not going to happen.
I mean, I hope
you're right.
I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, pay for Goose. That's all that he needed to do.
Yeah.
Dash Shroud, can't be Mazavith.
And this is just hoping that Danny makes a mistake.
He forgets to attack.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, you know, make him kill you. That's perfectly fine. And you see David even smile a little bit, saying, "Oh, gotta try." So completely understandable as Danny Jessup's able to tie things up here against David Long. Team Delver and Lands getting ready for a third game.
So there's Danny's game plan. And you see just how he has to use his resources so differently. I mean, with the Dazes and Spell Pierces, he needs to just Daze and Pierce the first possible thing he can. Even if, and you saw, he was willing to Spell Pierce Punishing Fires when David had a Grove in play. He was willing to Spell Pierce Life from the Loams. Cards that seem horrible to use counter magic on.
Oh, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, but you got to do what you got to do. That's really all that is. And it was good enough there for Jessup to force a third game. I think what's going to happen a lot of the time when Team Delver does win games and or matches against Lands, it's going to be in unconventional fashion with some pretty weird-looking plays like we saw in that second game. So we'll see if Jessup can do it one more time. But in the meantime, as these players shuffle up for game number 3, we'll talk about the Next Level Library. 2 books written by the innovator Patrick Chapin. They're for all skill levels, paper book and ebook. They're also available now at StarCityGames.com/nextlevel, Next Level Magic, and Next Level Deck Building. Again, by the Hall of Famer, the Pro Tour champion, 2-time World's runner-up, and sometimes here in the booth with us in Patrick Chapin.
I picked up my own paperback copy of Next Level Deck Building. Really one of the great theoretical minds in our game.
Yeah. Maybe the best article writer of all time.
I would
certainly open to a debate there.
Yeah, I would say regardless of the skill level you're at, I mean, I certainly had plenty of things I could learn from the book. It was good. I would recommend them.
David Long, Danny Jessup, both 5-1 here. Long, a legacy specialist with Lands. A lot of great performances on the Open Series circuit with that deck. And Premier IQs and legacy main events. For Danny Jessup, number 3 on our Season 3 leaderboard. Looking to qualify for the Players' Championship this year. He's in a great spot to do so. Long and I think a really good matchup right now, though.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I want to be for Long. You play Lands so that you can get paired up against Delver decks. Team Delver is harder than others because they have, you get things like Life from the Loam out of the board. They're more in on Stifles and Wastelands. But really, all flavors of Delver deck is what you're hoping to play against.
Yeah, I mean, there are enough annoying things that Team Delver can do to Lands to keep them off balance. I mean, we just saw that last game. Spell Pierce here, Wasteland there. All of a sudden, you're lone Wastelanding them, which doesn't happen very often to the Lands deck, but you have just enough stuff that's annoying.
Well, when they have a draw without a mana bond or an exploration, it is possible to mana deny the Lands deck. They're still limited by how many lands they can play in a turn.
Both players are going to take a look at their 7. David Long will be on the play.
See, David has not kept a 7 yet. That's fairly common for the Lands deck.
Yeah, he's going to send it back. It's a deck that mulligans a decent amount. But it's perfectly fine mulliganing because, again, it's about card quality, not quantity. It's looking for specific cards, namely Life from the Loam.
Yeah, namely Loam. It hopes to have one of the multiple land drop cards with it. And really, almost any hand with those cards will do. If you have a Loam plus an Exploration, a Loam plus even a Mox Diamond. some way to boost you to 3 lands on the second turn.
So we'll see what long 6-card hand will look like here in just a bit. But again, both these decks, especially in this matchup, will mulligan a fair amount. Both looking for specific things. I think long on the whole will probably mulligan more than Jessup, but his hands are certainly more powerful. I mean, game 1 we saw David win with 5 cards pretty easily.
Oh yeah. Once the pieces are there, he'll recoup all the card advantage.
Well, down to 5 again. I guess it worked the first time.
We have seen David on mulligans of 5, 6, and 5.
Yep. His starting hand size is a little low in this matchup as well. We've seen some players with some very small starting hand sizes this weekend.
It does take away the chance for him to have, I guess, the nut draw here. You know, its exploration becomes a lot worse when you're on a 5-card hand.
Yep.
You just won't have lands to play. So at this point, he's probably not hoping for one. You know, I think his best hand would be something along the lines of Mox Diamond, Loam, 3 lands. Would be great.
Yeah, I'd sign up for that. One from a fetch land.
That'd be, yeah.
Get extra greedy. You got to get extra greedy.
All right.
There you go.
If it's a fetch land, I'm definitely in.
There you go.
I'm in both ways, though. Because then you can loam turn 1, and you can even pay for the days turn 2.
If you're going to be greedy, all the way. All the way. That's what I say.
I'd go for Mana Bond, loam 3 lands, too. That would be acceptable.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, loam 4 lands is acceptable, to be frank.
Any loam hand.
Gamble 4 lands is a possibility.
They would take a look at 5.
And he'll go.
Yep. Verdant Catacombs being sacrificed. Long going to very quickly go down to 19.
Land, Mox Diamond, Loam. Are we going to do it? Probably not.
Let's see what land he wants to search up here. Curious if he's in search of maybe the basic, yeah.
Yep.
Doesn't want to get wastelanded.
Teamer, that smart move. A lot of times you see them get a Taiga there. But against Teamer, wants to be wasteland proof. What are the remaining 4 cards? Does he have a way?
Oh.
I mean, it may just be a 4 lands loam type hand.
It's just a pass. I mean, I like sacrificing on the main phase because you don't want to get stifled. So I think that's just a really smart thing to do.
Chalice of the Void, I believe, the pickup. That's an interesting one, especially if he has a choice between, like, say, Loam and Chalice.
He's going to play Loam. I like playing Loam here more than Chalice. And the reason I like playing Loam more than Chalice here is because
it's going to get countered.
I think it's just so likely that, like, the spell that you play this turn is going to get countered. Now, Danny's letting it resolve because he has Spell Snare in his hand.
Yeah. Maybe he should counter a better Loam than that one.
He's going to take the opportunity to cast Brainstorm. But when your opponent starts off without pondering or playing a threat on turn 1, that means they have something react to do that costs 1 mana.
So I want to point out the good adaptation from Danny here. If that was a Spell Pierce, I believe he would Spell Pierce the Life from the Loam because he's worried about the lifespan on that. Because it's specifically Spell Snare, a card that's always been a counter Life from the Loam, what he can do is wait and counter a much better Life from the Loam, or a much more important one.
Here's a Dredge. A couple Taigas and Exploration.
Frequently I find when I'm watching a Landsec play, man, if you could only Loam back Exploration... You could. Oh, what a world it would be.
I don't think we're going to see that one anytime soon.
And now that he has a Wasteland here. All right, Wasteland and Chalice of the Void. There's no way Danny can let the Chalice resolve.
No.
No way. I'm interested that David did not waste the Volcanic Island first. And then go through combat, and then play Chalice.
I'm a little surprised. In that situation, it truly just depends on what you're putting your opponent on.
Well,
you know?
I mean, you make this play if you want Danny to counter it. Say Danny has 1 counter spell, right?
Okay.
And you say, man, I want him to counter Chalice so that my Loam works. Then this is fine.
I guess if you waste that volcanic, go to the second main phase, then play Chalice, it can run in a daze, but you're also setting him back a land, so maybe you're happy with that exchange.
I would think so, because he has a Loam Wasteland. Right, so now Spell Snare will happen. Yeah, because Danny's hand was all 1-mana spells right now. He has Forceful, but he's got this Brainstorm, this Spell Pierce. That Chalice seems like quite the prize.
There's the Wasteland. I'll take care of the Tropical Island.
3 cards in the yard for Danny. Now he can counter that Life from the Loam 2 more times. He can pierce it and then force it if he needs to.
There's Brainstorm. He's building up the graveyard pretty quickly here.
Right.
Got to get that Nimble Mongoose online as fast as he can.
And it picks up a pair of Wastelands off his own Brainstorm.
This again.
Well, but if he Wastelands David, then David will get, provided David has an untapped land, David will get to resolve Loam. And then we'll really get into a Wasteland fight.
But that might be okay.
It might be okay, you're right. Mongoose, especially a 3/3 Mongoose, is a problem for lands.
But
at that point, Danny's just has no other plan if he goes down that road. Because when they all run out of lands, David will start rebuilding and Danny won't.
But it's a safe road to go down because of the text on Mongoose.
It does. It is a 3/3 Shroud.
If it was a Tarmogoyf or a Delver,
absolutely not.
I wouldn't like it at all. But the Mongoose dictates what he can do, which is right now come across for 1. And soon enough, he'll be making it 3.
Yep. How many cards in the graveyard? It is 4.
Yep.
The question would be, though, if David has that Bazooka Bog out of the sideboard, that would do quite a number on that strategy.
That would be a beating.
Remember, between Wasteland and Bazooka Bog, if David gets ahead enough on lands, he can recur. He can keep the Mongoose at a 1/1.
Trop.
Oh, okay. Now Danny ups the ante here.
Yeah, this got real hard for David.
David, do you even want to Wasteland Danny? Are you worried that if you do, you'll put 7 cards in his graveyard?
Yeah, this got a lot harder. Now all of a sudden, David has to think about cards like Tabernacle. He's got to think about cards like Thespian Stage plus Dark Depths. He's got to go a different route because this just got a lot harder.
Crop rotation is important.
Yep.
So if he's looking for those, he probably needs to loam. He just needs to start loaming very quickly to try to find one of them.
We'll start by sacrificing Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, he actually doesn't have a land to find.
Oh, no.
The Forest and Tiger are both in his graveyard.
His 2 Tigers are in the graveyard and his Forest is in play. Oh, no.
Oh, he just realized it now, and that's... Yeah, he has no other targets.
Oh, what a disaster.
And a misstep there from David Long could cost him. Does he have a crop rotation, I guess, would be the question. Wow.
That is a huge misstep. Not only did he take 1 from the Verdant Catacombs, that was his land drop from the turn, too.
Yeah, the 1 is damage is okay. The losing the land drop is really going to hurt him.
Yeah.
He still could try. I mean, yeah, he could try to. Still, he could has a plan where he can Wasteland Danny down, get a Tabernacle out. But I think Danny's going to go on the Wasteland offensive now.
5 cards in the graveyard, come across for 2 points of damage. Yeah, Danny's got the opportunity to really bottleneck him now, which he permission and Wasteland.
Well, if David leaves up a green, I wonder if Danny will play the second Wasteland into it. I mean, if David can try to crop rotate in response, get a Tabernacle, do something like that. David could play a Wasteland. You can't really waste a Wasteland. He has lines here. He's not taking too much damage yet.
Well, I think the little chip shots are going to end next turn.
It looks like it, yeah. There are 5 cards in the graveyard. This will turn quick. Dark Depths, Wasteland, 2 Taigas. Loam in the graveyard for David Long. Looks like he does have a crop rotation. That'll play very well here. I mean, it will probably eat a Force of Will from Dan.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like a spell right now that's going to get countered.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll set David back even further. And you see Long's hand. He's got a lot of lands over there, of course, in that crop rotation. And he doesn't have the ability to play multiple lands a turn. Again, no Exploration or Mana Bond at this point. So he is playing as fair as his deck really plays right now. There's Wasteland.
Goes for Wasteland. Wasteland is nice in that it stops Danny from being able to play another Wasteland. Danny's draw. He has 2 Volcanics in hand. A Wasteland of his own. A Force of Will. He may have a blue card to go with it. I think he has a Spell Pierce to go with it. So just 1 counter spell.
Gonna do a little bit of math now. I mean, he's in a great situation. He's just got to capitalize on it. I'm sure he's thinking is, how can I turn this Mill Mongoose into a 3/3?
I think the only way he can do it without David's help is, unless David lets him counter something, the only way he can do it is by wasting his own land, which I get that he's ahead. I don't know if he's ahead enough that I want to make that play.
I don't know if I want to press my advantage that hard. And I would love to make it a 3-turn game. Here's an attack.
David Long at 13. He can just continue to develop his mana base and say go. David goes for anything. And Danny can use a counter spell, and that'll get him up towards threshold.
Yeah, he's got a way to say no. Dredge life from the Loam. Loam, Exploration, and crop rotation. Not exactly what the doctor ordered.
The dredge there is fine. David, I think he's trying to he'd like to naturally hit. I can't tell whether he may want to naturally hit the Tabernacle. He may not want to at the same time because then he can't crop rotate into it. And if that's the case, he needs to be careful about dredging Loam.
Also, the Tabernacle's getting a little worse as we go here, right?
It's getting worse, absolutely.
Yeah, Danny's mana isn't really constricted at this point. When you think about it, he's not even really using it.
I'd say Glacial Chasm is a possibility, but Danny's sitting on a Wasteland, so that won't work. It almost feels like David needs to draw a card to hit an Exploration, because that's the only way he will be able to waste Danny out of the game.
It's the only way, right now, it feels like Exploration or Mana Bond are the only cards that are of relevancy, because it allows him to actually start playing broken.
Yeah, he could also just quickly find a Dark Depths combo. That would work if he milled into the... He has the depths in hand. I guess maybe he's just trying to mill into Thespian Stage.
You still got to be worried about that Wasteland that's on the table, though. There's so much he has to overcome.
If he has enough things in play, there's outs. He can, as long as he doesn't mind losing his Taiga, he can waste the Wasteland, and then Danny will get his Taiga as well. But if he has enough mana to turn a Thespian Stage into a Dark Depths, that's fine. Say he plays, say, a stage this turn, and then next turn plays a Dark Depths. Before he plays the Depths, he could... Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of things that have to happen.
Yeah.
But the fact that these Mongeese are still 1/1s is really helping David. He actually has time.
They're not clocking for enough yet.
Yeah, and I mean, and a lot of this for me depends, is Bazooka Bog in his deck? Right? Because if he can mill into Bazooka Bog or crop rotate into Bazooka Bog, totally different game.
Delta Wasteland Gamble. Excuse me. Punishing Fire Wasteland Gamble.
Bazooka Bog will buy him sometime, but maybe these Mongeese never have to become 6/6s. Maybe they can do the job as 1/1s.
Yeah.
These Blade Cover Scouts.
They're certainly annoying. They're not as annoying as they could be. But I also think Jessup next turn, again, 5 cards in the graveyard, if he's able to get 7, he makes it a 2-turn clock.
So he may just Spell Pierce anything that David plays.
I truthfully don't think it's out of the equation that he Wastelands himself. I really don't.
At this point, it's fine. I mean, he could also just say draw, I fetch land. I would do it.
There's Dark Depths.
You have to be slightly concerned now if you're Danny. And a lot of patience on David's side to not cast a Life from the Loam there. You know, there's a Wasteland in the graveyard. It seems like a reasonable spot to do that.
Next turn, I think David's taking a natural draw step. Because spiking the stage next turn is so powerful for this draw. But for now, as David does pass the turn, we're going back to Jessup. He's going to untap. Take a draw.
A fetch land would be huge for him. And I think he hit.
So 5 cards in the graveyard right now. Delta would be number 6. That was his draw step.
Yeah, and then waste anything. Waste one of David's lands.
Sure.
7.
Probably just waste that. Probably just go to the Dark Depths.
Waste the Dark Depths. That's the card that'll beat you.
Yeah. And then you can turn it into a 2-turn clock. 11 minus 6 is 5. 5 minus 6 is -1.
You just need to make sure that Brazuca Bog doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And what I do see here is if he goes for that Wasteland, we will see David crop rotate in response.
Danny taking a look at Dark Depths, just wants to make sure he knows what it does. But he's Wastelanding that.
Does David pull the I imagine David pulls the trigger on crop rotation here. It's too good not to. Threshold, he didn't want to play Instance earlier because Threshold was an issue, but Threshold's already on the table for Danny.
Yep.
It's time to rotate away the Dark Depths.
The situation has changed. There's crop rotation.
Stacking the Taiga.
Yeah, I mean he's going.
Okay,
he's going for stage. Yeah.
For stage.
Yeah.
Sure. Here's Force of Will. Pitching Force of Will. So Danny has since drawn a second Force. All right.
Now Wasteland resolves. And the Mongoose are 3/3s now, so it doesn't have to sacrifice the Polluted Delta. Come across here for 6, put Long down to 5, and I think Long is on a no for.
I could uptake Brazuca Bog.
Okay, yep.
Or crop rotation.
Yep.
I don't know if that crop rotation actually works.
He's got to take a natural draw step, though, because he can't afford to loam.
I mean, he could loam into Brazuca Bog if he thought that Danny had nothing, but that's unlikely. And there you go. Teamer Delver and Danny Jessup into day 2.
Danny Jessup going to win this match here over David Long, 2-1. Teamer Delver takes care of lands for Danny Jessup. He is 6-1. 6-3 looks good for day number 2. So for Jessup, he's into day 2 of competition. However, he doesn't have any interest in losing. He's trying to expand that lead over Ross Merriam, Joe Lissette, and Chris Van Meter. So we'll see if he can keep the win train going. He's off to a great start here in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, congratulations to Danny Jessup, dodging a difficult matchup, but he picks up the W, moves to 6-1.